Okay, so I said we'd kick off at 4:05, and that's what we're doing. So today we're talking very much cash flow, revenue management, and profitability. So over the last couple of calls, so, and just for information, I am recording this session as well, which I'll be loading to YouTube, not for necessarily public consumption, but just to allow people to be able to download it. So it will go under a private label. So I'll make the link available as well. So the conversation about cash flow, and again, I want to just call out to Lola and thank her for raising the question yesterday, is about how we prepare our businesses, ourselves for times of challenge. And again, this is not, let me emphasize, this is not a Corona conversation. This is a business conversation and how we grow business to the point where it is sustainable and to the point where it is able to grow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through the levers around the financial position of a business that we normally work with, and how we can influence those levers in order to be able to deliver growth. So at this stage, in the first half of the call, it's going to be less of a conversation, or less conversation-y than we've had before, and very much more me sort of presenting content, and then we can take that into a conversation space afterwards. But that said, if you have any questions as we go along, just raise a hand and let's pick up the conversation as we go. Okay, so let me get into presentation mode and share. All right. Okay. Everyone can see the shared screen?
Not yet.
You should be seeing a screen that says Dream Big.
No.
No?
No.
Let's see what my technology is doing to me today. Oh.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Got it?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to start with this because this is quite important. We start businesses, we own businesses, we run businesses in order to deliver something. We're either delivering a way of life, or we're delivering a personal ambition or a wealth ambition. And so every business that we look at, we need to look at it from the point of view of how does it impact our lives. So we talk about starting off with a life plan. Our life plan informs what the business plan looks like, and the business plan informs what the marketing plan looks like. Most businesses, when they start up, the business owner is quite eager to get into market, and so they start with the marketing plan, and they retrofit the business plan in order to satisfy the marketing plan. The net result is that the business plan is often then insufficient to service the life plan that the business owner is trying to achieve. So if we look at, and again, let me reference the question of how do we manage our businesses for sustainability, and how do we manage things like cash flow to carry us through the difficult times? So if we look at a question now, and it's timely now because of the challenge that we're facing, the whole Corona lockdown, the impact on the economy, and the impact on businesses, and particularly, as much as I hate the term, small businesses. But actually, let me divert for a minute. A couple of months ago, I posted on LinkedIn an article about SAA going into business rescue. And the point I made in that article is that there is no such thing as big business and small business. Business is business. The foundations are the same. The principles are exactly the same. What are we seeing now in the South African market? Edcon holding up their hand, the massive Edgar's group, and saying, sorry, suppliers, we can't pay you. We can only pay our employees at this point. And Edcon is now applying for business rescue. Why? The fundamentals of the business are not established, and therefore it takes away from the resilience of the business. What I'm going to take you through now in terms of these 5 levers sets up the fundamentals of the business, as setting in place a very firm foundation to be able to grow the business. And the reason for that is because we start with a life plan, we start with a vision, and then we build a business plan from there. So if we look at the now, what revenue is your particular business generating? That's the top line. What is your income? What does your income look like? We're not even talking profitability right now. We're just talking income. What does your income look like, and is it sufficient to support the lifestyle that you are looking at? Can I just ask guys just to go on mute in the meantime? I'm just getting a little bit of feedback on the call. So let's look at lifestyle, the life plan, your life ambitions. Where do you live now? What do you drive? What investments have you made? Very important, because we talk about passive income as well. I'm not an investment analyst. I'm not an investment coach, but investment is part of your journey as an entrepreneur to make available capital to direct into investments, and so add into a secondary income stream. What are your upcoming travel plans? How does that fit into your lifestyle? What is your family currently enjoy? What is your standard of living? And how much time are you spending working in your business? If you take that as a snapshot right now, as of today, and you went, where do I want to be in 5 years' time? What revenue do I want to be generating in 5 years' time? Where do I want to live? What do I want to drive? How much capital do I want to have available for investment? What does my travel history look like post lockdown, obviously? I love the ones that talk about, I'm now tired of Kitchenfontein. I'm relocating to Loungeville. Where have you traveled? What is your family currently enjoying? And how much time are you spending working on your business? So the point of this positioning is we have the now, and then we have the future, and where are we wanting to go in the future. So I even want you guys to think about, where am I now, and where am I going to be after the 16th of April? What do I want my outcome from this to be? Ray and Jacques, you guys haven't been on the previous calls, but a big part of the positioning of these calls is around the mindset of an entrepreneur, and the idea of not just surviving through the challenge of this time, but actually getting your business to grow and to thrive, so that you come out stronger than when you actually went in. So again, this positioning is about, where are you at now, and where will you be at the end of lockdown. So obviously that can extend into 60 days from now, 90 days from now, 1 year from now. But what does that look like for you? And again, just emphasizing, it is focusing on your life ambition, your vision, for want of a better term, that informs your business plan, and then ultimately informs your marketing plan. So that sets us up for going into the various areas that impact your business from a customer point of view, from a turnover point of view, and from a profits point of view. So if we look at this little chart that I've got up here, so every business is dependent on customers, right? They're the ones who bring in the revenue, they're the ones who spend with you, and they're the ones who you need to keep happy. Now, ultimately, you can't simply just get more customers. So park that thought for a moment. Similarly, based on what your customers spend with you, that is going to generate your turnover, the amount of cash and revenue that comes into the business. And then based on that, you'll determine your profit, which is typically what's left over after you've paid your bills. But like customers, you can't simply just get more revenue. You can't get more turnover. You can't get more profit. You have to actually manage each one of those. So if we look at what that looks like as a grid, okay, so customers' revenue and profits are outcomes. Customers is a function of the number of leads that you generate in your business times the conversion rate of those leads. That gives you your customer base. Then your revenue is a function of the number of transactions that your customers undertake with you and the average rand sale that those customers, or the value of what those customers spend with you. That gives you your revenue. And then your profit margins determine what your profit actually looks like. So let's spend a little bit of time on number of leads. So remember what I said initially is your life plan informs your business plan, and your business plan informs your number of your marketing plan, right? So Laura asked the question, and she said, how do we future-proof our business? How do we ensure that we have enough cash, enough capital in the business to survive these tough times? Well, very simply, it is a case of how big your vision for your business actually is, the need that you have in your business and in your lifestyle, multiplied by the business plan that you've set up, and your business plan being serviced by the marketing plan. So let's take that as a practical example. If you said to yourself that I want to retire by age 55, for argument's sake, and you sit with your financial advisor and you discover that in order to retire at age 55, you need between now and then a net monthly income of, let's call it 100,000 Rand. And that 100,000 Rand is going to give you, over the course of a year, 1.2 million Rand, which you can either invest or put into savings. And let's say over 10 years that you may still have available to you to work in, you might be able to then retire with 12 million Rand in the bank. Now, in order to get to a net of 1.2 million Rand, and I'm not going to be slinging a lot of finance talk and accounting talk and formulae and whatever at you. This is as complicated as it's going to get. Is understand that in order to get to that net outcome, let's call it the profit, in order to get to that net position, you need to have an input. And your input is effectively your number of leads. So the number of leads is anybody who knocks on your door who can potentially do business with you. So if you had a shop, the leads is anybody who's either walking into your store, walking into your shop in order to possibly browse, but possibly sell, right? So somebody walks in, they're looking around. Let's say you're running a furniture store. They're looking around. They're looking at the sofas. They're looking at the cupboards. They're looking at your white goods, the TVs, dishwashers, washing machines, etc. Now, if that person leaves and no sale comes from that, that is a lost lead. If 1,000 people walk into your shop in a day, that's 1,000 leads. And by extension, that is potentially, let's just take a month as having 30 days, that is potentially 30,000 leads that you deal with in a month. Now the question is, how do you convert those guys to sale? Well, actually, that's your conversion rate right there. We'll talk about that in a minute. When they buy from you, they become customers. And if they buy from you once, you take that value of that transaction. So let's say they spent 1,000 Rand on a TV. They spent 1,000 Rand on a TV. That's a transaction of, that's one transaction times 1,000 Rand. So from that customer, your revenue was 1,000 Rand. If you ask yourself, how much did that TV cost me? So if the TV cost you 800 Rand, your profit on that is 200 Rand, right? So that's your net outcome. So if I've lost anybody, just reach out and shout, and I'll re-explain that. But the principle here is that your number of leads times your conversion rate gives you your customers. Remember the conversation of life plan, business plan, marketing plan. Your number of leads is dependent on the marketing plan that you follow. So if you, in order to now generate your 12 million Rand total, your 1.2 million Rand a year that you need for your retirement benefit, you have to ask yourself, how many leads do I need to generate to get the number of customers who's going to give me that revenue? Okay, so let's just actually do this as a practical exercise. I've literally just kind of done some illustration here. So let's say your number of leads is 4,000. So again, and Laura, forgive me, I'm going to keep referring back to your question as I illustrate this, because at the end of it, I'll pull it all together to answer that big question that you had. What is the revenue? What is the cash flow that we need to tide us through this period? Okay, so let's say our number of leads is 4,000. So in practical terms, you might have a database of 4,000 people who you believe are interested in either your product or your service. So for purposes of illustration, let's say the number of leads is 4,000. Now we look at that and we say the conversion rate, how well we're able to make the sale, how well are we able to convince those people to buy from us. Nobody, well, very few people have a 100% conversion rate. In other words, 4,000 people, 4,000 leads become 4,000 customers. That is highly unlikely, and it's highly, highly unusual unless your sales system is super focused, is super polished, and is highly, highly systemized. So let's work on an average and say 25%. So a conversion rate of 25%. In other words, of the 4,000 people who walk into our furniture store in any particular, let's say, month, 25% of them we're able to convince to buy something from us. And that 25% then means that at the end of that month, we have 1,000 customers, right? So let's say 1,000 customers spend or engage with us in 2 transactions. One, they buy a TV, and sure, in the old days we used to say a video machine, or yeah, that's the very old days, not even a DVD player. But let's say they buy a TV and an Xbox. So now we actually have 2 transactions that that these 1,000 customers have done, right? And at a value, illustrative value of 100 Rand. So that means that revenue-wise, of our 1,000 customers who've all conducted 2,000 transactions with us at an average sale of 100 Rand per, that gives us a revenue of 200,000, right? So with 200,000 in hand, we go, well, what does it cost us to maintain that sale and to actually make the sale possible? So this is our cost of goods, or our cost of sales. And again here, let's work on a nominal 25%. It's kind of average for where most businesses are. It could be anywhere between 25 and 50% margin that the business works on. And that then gives us a profit of 50,000 Rand. Okay, so I want to now use these numbers as an illustration to Laura's point. So let's look at our business and say our business needs, most accountants are going to say to you, you need about 90 days worth of cushioning in your business in order to survive rough times, whether that is economic tough times, whether it is a slump in sales, whether it is a scarcity in supply, a shortage of raw materials, etc. I don't know what that number is for you. That is a conversation with your accounting team, or according to your business plan, or according to what your financial projections look like. But let's assume that the numbers that we have here are accurate for purposes of conversation. So let's assume that your safety cushion is 75,000 Rand, for argument's sake. So in other words, out of all your sales, you need to walk away with not 50,000 Rand in profit, in usable profit. You need to walk away with 75,000 Rand. Okay. So what has this now actually given us? It's given us a profit level that we need to aim for. And this is one of the first things that most businesses, never mind business owners, most businesses find foreign. In fact, when I speak to a lot of business owners and ask them, what is your profit budget? Most of them give me one of two answers. They either look at me blankly, or they will say to me, well, last year I made so much. I made X, 50,000 Rand, 100,000 Rand, whatever the case might be. But the question here is, what is your profit budget? And I want to reinterpret that into the question of today, because we're talking revenue, cash flow, etc. What is your survival budget? Okay, what is the level of liquidity that your business needs to survive the tough times? So whether that's 50,000 Rand, whether that's 100,000 Rand, whether that's R1 million, irrespective, you now have a goal that you need to focus on. And that is your budget. So when we talk about profit, in most people's minds, profit is what's left over after you have paid your expenses. So you've received your revenue, you've paid your expenses, and what's left in your bank account is your profit. That is what I call a default profit. That is not managed. It is left there almost by accident. You've fallen down the stairs and landed on your feet, and hopefully you've landed on a positive number rather than a negative number. What I like to work with is a profit budget. So the profit budget says to me, at the end of this financial year, or at the end of this quarter, or at the end of this month, I want to land with 100,000 Rand in profit. Now, if you look at this scale, or if you look at the progression of these numbers, hopefully you can now start to see that it's not just simply a case of saying, I want to land on 100,000 Rands worth of profit, and therefore that's what I'm ultimately going to be left with. If you look at the relationship between the numbers, you start to see that by influencing each one of those numbers, you influence each of your outcomes. In other words, if my number of leads increased and my conversion rate stayed the same, my number of customers will go up. Even if my transactions stayed the same and my average that the customer spent with me stayed the same, my revenue will go up because my number of customers has increased. Even if my profit margin stayed the same, then my profit by definition would go up. But let me just very quickly debunk that. Simply increasing our customer number doesn't necessarily increase our profit, because very often it costs us more to maintain a greater number of customers. So it is possible to have a higher number of customers that generates more revenue, but it actually erodes your profit, because the margin conversation, the overhead conversation, takes value out of the revenue transaction. Okay, let me do a quick sense check here and just see whether people are still following me. If I've lost anybody, just raise a hand and I'll happily take a question. But if everybody's still fine and following the train of thought, just happily nod and we'll go on from there. Cool. I'm seeing some thumbs up. I've seen a couple of nods.
Yep.
Everyone is still good. Okay, fantastic. All right. So again, we bring it home to the question, and the question says, what is my magic number to survive tough times like this? Again, as I said, I can't give you that number. I can happily direct you to an accountant if you don't have one, who can help you calculate what that number looks like. But ultimately, it is going to be a number that is specific to your business. So as I said, even if my number of customers increases, but my transactions stay the same and the value of those transactions stay the same, my revenue will increase. Even if my profit margin stays the same, my profit will theoretically or academically increase, right? So what I want to illustrate here, and some of you have been on the call with on different calls with me previously, where I've spoken about when you're changing your business, it is about doing 100 things that delivers 1% impact each, rather than trying to do one thing that delivers a 100% impact, right? Because if the one thing fails, or is not successful, your 100% impact is lost. But if 50% of your 100 things that you try are not successful, and 50% of them are, you've already at least shifted your business by 50%. So it is about ensuring we touch the right things in the right way in order to deliver the best impact. And a lot of what we've been talking about is how do we pivot our business? And pivoting the business to continue to be sustainable and to grow in these times is also quite an important conversation and plays directly into the conversation of cash flow, of profitability, and of revenue. Again, I'm not going to go into cash flow in detail. I actually have an awesome video from one of our coaches in the UK, who's done a really good video on the different types of cash flow in the business, and I'm happy to share that with you guys for anybody who's interested. But it deals with things like investment, cash flow, and all of that, which is not the level of detail that I want to get into here. So let's assume we do want to toggle these numbers, because our profit margin or our profit budget is significantly bigger than the level of profit that we're generating in the business here at 50,000 Rand. So let's bump that on. So what happens if we increase each one of these areas? So we go on a little bit of a marketing drive, and we take our 4,000 leads off our database, and we employ somebody to find more leads, to go trawl the Chamber of Commerce directories, look at industry publications, identify new businesses that we can potentially reach out to. And let's say we manage to increase our 4,000 leads to 4,400 leads, right? We've just increased it by 10%. From 4,000 up by 400 to 4,400. Let's say we go and do a little bit of training, or we employ a professional sales force. Now, these are, let me just put a rider here. These are not tactics that I'm recommending. I'm simply just illustrating what happens if we make a couple of minor tweaks along the way. The tactics that are appropriate to your business is something that we can discuss in detail, either individually or offline. So, but for the sake of illustration, let's say we go and we employ a sales force. And the sales force goes out, reaches out to these now 4,400 leads that we have, and through their professionalism, they're able to increase our conversion rate by 10%. So our number of leads have gone from 4,000 to 4,400. That's up by 10%. And our conversion rate has gone up from 25% to 27.5%. Very happy for you guys to check my calculations as we go through this in the background. But net result of that is that the number of customers now increases from 1,000 to 1,210, right? So just check my maths. We've increased 4,000 leads to 4,400. That's an increase of 10%. We've increased our conversion rate from 25% to 27.5%. That's an increase of 10%. Net result, our number of customers have increased from 1,000 customers to 1,210 customers. That's an increase of 10%, correct?
Just over here.
Just slightly more.
Yeah, that's correct. Eh?
Actually, it's significantly more. the increase of 10% on number of leads and the increase of 10% on conversion rate gives you a compounded growth effect on your customer base of 21%.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So
Correct.
this is an illustration of how simply tweaking certain key things in your business structure starts to deliver incremental value into the business, right? And again, if I bring this home to Laura's question, it's about building the right structure that delivers the right level of revenue and the right level of profitability in our business that creates sustainability and creates growth. Okay, so we now have a compound effect of 21% growth on our customer base simply by growing our number of leads and our conversion rate by 10% each. Okay, so now we go, okay, so we've got more customers. We'd like each of our customers to, we need to transact with them more frequently. So each one of them has bought from us twice. What happens if we increase that number of transactions by just another 10%? So we increase that by to 2.2. So 2.2 transactions per customer on average gives us a growth of 10% in our number of transactions. Let's assume we're now able to increase our average sale from each one of those customers by 10%, and it goes up from 100 Rand to 110 Rand. Okay, so what have we done now? We've now influenced,
10%.
yeah, exactly. So we've grown another 10%, and we've now influenced 4 levers in our business structure. The first 2 levers have delivered 21% impact. We've now influenced the second 2 levers, being number of transactions and average Rand sale. And the impact we see here, again, please check my maths, is that our revenue grows from 200,000 Rand to 292,000 Rand, so just under 300,000 Rand. So 10% growth all the way through this little structure delivers to us roughly 46% growth by the time we hit revenue. Okay, so again, it's the principle of doing 100 things at 1% change rather than doing one thing at 100% change. So let's say we're able to now get efficient on our profit margin. So one of the first things that we look at when we look for efficiency in profit margin is we look at our overheads. Jacques will tell us we can look at things like our cost of sales from a raw materials point of view, from an input cost point of view. Am I right, Jacques?
That is correct, yes.
Absolutely. So we can look at it from an input cost point of view, but we can also look at where we're simplifying our business. Okay. So what's one of the biggest opportunities that we have in this time? So this is an absolutely crucial pivot point in our conversation as business owners. What have I been doing that I no longer need to do, or that I can do differently, or that I can do better, so that I bring more efficiency into my business? In other words, how can I reduce my overhead? Okay, so some of the conversations we've been having of people have been going, well, hell, I've been pumping money into an office, into massive office infrastructure right up to now. What are we doing now? We have, how many of us are on this call? 8. We're 8 on this call, 8 business owners, 8 business leaders, and we're having a very highly productive conversation around business. How many of us have been engaging with clients and customers on cell phone, on Zoom, on Skype, on whatever digital or online platform? And what has that done? It's created the possibility for us to reduce our overhead, to operate in a virtual environment. So let's take the operation in a virtual environment and say we reduce our cost of an office, or we may even end up reducing our cost of telephone calls because we're directing most of our contact through data. And data is actually cheaper than a telephone call. So maybe a Skype basis and a Zoom basis becomes something that we replace our telephone infrastructure with, or we follow voice over internet protocol, just as an example. So we're able to bring more efficiency into the business overhead structure, right? And let's continue with our example, and we say, well, through doing that, we find as we test, as we measure what we've done over this lockdown period, we discover, well, actually, we've somehow been more profitable because we've spent less time in our cars. We've spent less time driving to customers, right? And I shared this example with Odette the other day. I pulled into the estate on Thursday afternoon, which is the day before lockdown, and the reserve light on my car went on, and it went bing, 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 and I thought, oh hell, I've got to fill up. And then suddenly I thought to myself, well, hang on, dude, where are you going for 21 days? Nowhere, right? My car is parked in my garage for 21 days. And even if I need to go out to the shop, I know what range is in my reserve tank. So I don't need to go and spend R1,000 to fill up my car. So that's R1,000 that's gone straight back into my personal cash flow, and bringing positivity into my cash flow for this month. So
also, you want to wait post 1st of April
well,
for the
post
big
1st of
decrease
April.
as well.
Exactly, right? So compound effect on reducing the overhead personally in my household and in my business. So that goes into a positive space. And suddenly I'm going, well, imagine if my entire business went virtual. Imagine if I coached my clients in exactly the way as we're having this session now. I would not need to maintain an office. I would not need to expend the sort of expenditure that I currently do to service clients. And so I could see an impact on my profitability. So we've now tweaked our leads, we've tweaked our conversion rate, we've tweaked our transactions, we've tweaked our average rand sale, and we've tweaked our overhead. And when we look at the total impact, we see that actually our profitability jumps. And again, I have the benefit of having done this calculation, but you're more than welcome to test it. Our profitability has jumped by 61%. All we've done is impacted 5 areas in our business, 5 areas at 10% impact each. And compounded effect across the areas of our business delivers a 61% growth in profitability. So does that sound like it's in the realm of possibility, or does it sound like it is something that is way out there, that is just, we're never going to get there?
Makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely makes sense. So if we look at this, hold on a bit, and even if we didn't impact, even if we weren't successful in 50% of these, even if we weren't successful, for example, in achieving overhead efficiency in the business. So let's say we lost the 2.5% additional on profit margin, and we retained our profit margin at 25%. Well, we'd still be better off than the 50,000 Rand that our profit margin was at. Right? We'd still be 25% of 292,000, assuming the others have all come in. So let's bring it back again to the question of how do we manage our cash flow and how do we project for the tough times? So yes, we don't know what that number is. I don't know what that number is per business, per each one of your businesses on this call. But what I do know is that following this recipe, following this structure allows you to manipulate the levers that have a direct impact on the success and the profitability and the revenue stream of your business. So even if we said, you know what, we were not able to increase our number of leads, but maybe we sell more effectively to the clients that we already have. We sell more effectively to the customers that we already have. we increase the number of transactions with those customers. We get them to buy more from us. And not only get them to buy more, but get them to buy at a higher value. Well, guess what? You're already impacting your revenue. You're already positively impacting your revenue. Even if you did nothing to your number of leads, nothing to your conversion rate, nothing to your transactions, nothing to your average rand sale per customer, but just focused on improving your overhead, improving your profit margin, guess what? You're releasing cash into the business. You're already making the cash a lot more effective and a lot more efficient. So that's why one of the first things I do when I start working with a new client is we look at the profit margin. How do we improve the profit margin? Because immediately we release cash into the business. The first thing most businesses want to do is go out and market. Marketing costs money. And I say that as an ex-marketer. Marketing costs money. It takes money out of the business. And unless you understand things like acquisition cost, things like lifetime value, making that expenditure work for you is incredibly difficult. You are typically going to spend more than you get out. And the recipe for successful marketing is ensuring that your acquisition cost is always lower than the lifetime value of that customer. So here's the nugget. If it costs you, if you embarked on Laura can keep me honest here on prices potentially. If you embarked on a Facebook campaign that costs you 10,000 Rand, and out of that Facebook campaign, you land 2 clients, and the total value of business from those 2 clients is 8,000 Rand. Has your marketing campaign been successful? No, you've lost 2,000 Rand, right? So yes, you might be able to say, well, I've gained the brand equity and I've gained exposure and that doesn't put cash in the bank. You've lost 2,000 Rand. If you spend 10,000 Rand on a Facebook campaign and that campaign brings back 2 clients who each spend 8,000 Rand or who spend a total of 8,000 Rand a month with you, has your marketing campaign been successful?
Yeah.
Absolutely, right? 8 grand a month over 12 months, that's 96,000 Rand. I would put 10 grand a month into Facebook every single month for that kind of return. Because what you now have is a marketing campaign that pays for itself. Your acquisition cost is way lower than what you're spending. And your lifetime value of that client, your acquisition cost, is much, much lower than the lifetime value of that client. So the point of what I'm trying to bring across here is that when you understand what makes up your revenue, when you understand what makes up your profit, you understand where you can touch the business in order to ensure survivability of that business. And not just survivability, but growth. And to illustrate that you can achieve growth through very, very simple interventions. And even interventions that right now you can tackle without going to market, without marketing. Very simply go and look at your profit margin, look at your overhead. Where can you create efficiency so that the money you already have coming in, right? So we all know the expression of fish where the fish are. Your existing customers are your fish. They're existing fish. So if you can work with them in a much more efficient way, they're already spending with you. If you can make that money work harder for you, you're already into a growth space on your business. If you can then work on your marketing structure so that your number of leads eventually increases and you're able to follow that process all the way through your business, then the compounded impact of that on your business is what delivers the growth. So it's either a growth conversation or it's a sustainability conversation, right? Because again, circumstances change. You might find that your 4,000 leads that have generated 1,000 customers, tomorrow your conversion rate might go down. Your conversion rate might go down because of an economic slump, because of isolation like we're in now, and your conversion rate might go down to 20%. So yes, there's a negative impact on your revenue. Again, if you simply look and go, who of your existing customers are able to buy more from you, or where can you increase value to them? That is a way to mitigate that loss. Or understanding that your number of leads, now is the time to cycle that up in order to gain the added value to drive your revenue and therefore improve your profits. The one thing that I want to bring home on this is, if your profit margins suck, if your overhead is in a really, really bad space, I mean, if you're sitting with a profit margin of, let's say, 5%, then irrespective of how many leads you push into that funnel, your growth journey is going to be very slow. So the first thing you need to do is identify where to bring the efficiencies into play. Does that make sense? Yeah? Cool. So, so again, to just looking at time, so we're 10 to 5. So just looking at the structure of this and bringing it home to Laura's question, and her question was, how do I know, or how do I manage cash flow? How do I manage the safety net, or how do I know that I have a sufficient safety net for this period? Because it's not something that we plan for. Well, the first answer is, we need to plan for it. So that's the first change to make. Bring that into the life plan conversation so that it imports into the business plan conversation. My business plan, because my life plan is that I need to eat, I need an income, I need to maintain a certain level of lifestyle, of quality of life. Therefore, my business plan must deliver this. And because my business plan delivers this, I know that for me to maintain this, I have to do X, Y, and Z. That feeds into my marketing plan. If I take those 3 areas and I overlay it onto these spaces here, I'm now in a much better, much stronger position to be able to manage what my business is delivering and how resilient my business actually is. But the first thing is plan for it and have the awareness of these numbers and how these numbers are able to impact your business. Okay, so I'm going to close the presentation there, and then we can have a quick conversation. And the first thing here is, we need to start thinking like entrepreneurs. We need to get out of the binary mindset that says it's either a yes or a no. I either can do this or I can't do this. I can either make the sale or I can't make the sale. We need to change the mindset to one that says, how do I do this? How do I become this? How do I create this opportunity? And then very specifically, what is the plan that you have for the future? Because again, our life plan determines our business plan, or is reliant on our business plan, and our business plan is reliant on our marketing plan for success. If we do the same things that we've always done and we do that in the same way, we're going to keep landing up in the same space. So if we don't plan for the resilience and we continue to do business, change is going to overtake us. We're not going to be in a position where we've got a strong enough, resilient business to survive tough times like this. And if we don't even know what that number looks like, then there's no way we're going to get through this in a positive way. But all of that is fed by your life vision, your life plan, why you started your business, why you want your business to achieve what it achieves or what you'd like it to achieve, in order for you to be able to live the life that you ultimately want. And that's what business is about. It isn't about the money. It's about the stuff that allows us to do what we want to do in life, because without that, there's no point. There's no meaning. Why are we actually doing this? Okay. So guys, I'm gonna close it off there, and just open up to any questions or general conversation around this point.
Sorry, I just want to make the point that it's all very well increasing your cash flow, but if people don't actually make a plan where they're going to put that money each month, they're going to just spend it. I mean, that's I've just seen that across the board of various people in various industries and professions. The more they have, the more they spend. So I think it's critical to increase your cash flow, but then I think it's just as important to actually make some sort of provision for an investment of some kind each month.
Yeah, exactly. And to the first slide that I popped up there, and it is the question of it's the question of what investments have you made, what investments are you making, in order to ensure that you are growing the value of your capital, right? And we know that the more money you have, the bigger hole it burns in your pocket. So again, unless you have a plan to manage that capital, the capital is going to drain away, either through inflation or whether through reckless and unnecessary spending. So yeah, absolutely valid point.
Thank you, Brendan, for the opportunity to join the conference call. When I initially joined the call, I was thinking about I'm joining a new organization tomorrow.
Okay.
It's a non-profit organization, and my immediate thinking was, where am I going to cut costs? Because it's going to be tough over the next 12 months. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's a budget, and we've got a clear idea of what we can expect in terms of our own income. But I think just listening to this and thinking how I can apply it to the nonprofit sector, I think the idea of, I think you're exciting a growth set rather than, just thinking about cash flow in a narrow sense. And I think maybe that for me is a major learning this afternoon to, as you say, to plan for resilience rather than be constricted by small thinking.
Yeah. Stepping away from the binary mindset of yes versus no, but creating space for the maybe in between and the how can I. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ray. Awesome point.
Brendan, some excellent points. It's always quite sort of enlightening when you're taken back to some of the sort of basics and the essentials, just as you have done this afternoon. And it's quite nice to be reminded in quite a succinct way, pulling you right back to actually this is what's important, and the formula is actually quite a simple one. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. It's been really nice to sort of just be pulled back to those basics again. And I do have another web call now. It's 4 o'clock UK time, so it's still sort of the tail end of the working day. So I will have to take my leave from all of you, and thank you again. And I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place.
Oh, awesome! Thanks for joining. All right.
Thanks very much, everyone. See you.
Yeah, cheers. Yeah, no, thanks, Brendan. For me, it was just a nice, comforting reminder of my business model being basically structured the same. Looking at all those triggers, seeing that I am in alignment, which speaks to the ultimate profit. But at the same token, it just highlights, or not highlights, it flashes in our face again, my biggest challenge, which is leads, number of leads. If I look at my conversion rate is quite high, but in order to have the conversation, to get in front of the right people, that's still, in my industry, that still proves to be my biggest challenge. Because I just did a rough calculation, my hit rate is sitting at around about 70% of conversion. So that's what I'm saying. So that triggers all the triggers down, which makes it profitable. But coming back to if the pond that I'm fishing in doesn't have a lot of fish, that makes it challenging. So I can't increase my profits if there's not enough fish in that specific pond. And I do not, I'm having issues or challenges in accessing the bigger ponds.
Yeah. So that's the question around the marketing plan, right? Is not just knowing where your fish gather, but it's knowing whether they're the right fish, whether they're in the right pond, and whether they're big enough to actually sustain the business that you need to build. And if they're too big for the pond that they're in, at what point do they shift? And trust me, we can take the We can take the pond metaphor to the nth degree, which I very often do, and I'd love to do that. I'll happy to take you through my pond metaphor offline. But it is really about knowing, sorry, my notifications are going mad. It is really about knowing who the fish are that feed your business, and then tailoring your offering to be sure that you're actually fishing with the right bait, ultimately, in order to push your conversion up. 70% is an awesome conversion rate, but to be able to get that up even higher with the right fish, or maintain, yeah. But with in the right spaces, in the right pond. Yeah.
Correct.
Cool. Awesome.
Brendan, it's Yuri.
Yuri.
Yeah, I need to duck. Thanks for that. It was very informative, and
awesome.
Yeah, I like the way that it works. It's great. I'm going to
Awesome.
see how I can apply it. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for joining, Yuri. It was good having you. Thank you.
Okay, bye now.
Ciao. All right, guys. So if there are no other questions or comments, I'm happy to close off from here. If there are any of you who want to pick up a conversation in detail around your businesses, according to this formula, I'm happy to do that offline with you as well, and talk through just some of the opportunities, stress areas, and particular growth points that you might be wanting to pursue. And especially now at this point, I mean, this is a formula that holds true business in general, organizations in general. It becomes even more relevant and even more critical when we're talking about a space where you are pivoting your business, where you are looking for new opportunities, where you are getting away from the, oh, woe is me, nobody's spending money, etc. Understand now what people are spending money on. Understand where they're spending that money. That feeds into the leads conversation. It feeds into the conversion rate conversation, and it makes the likelihood of the sale to the right people that much higher. So more than happy to have that offline conversation with whoever would like to have it as well.
Okay, Brendan.
Cool.
Sorry, I came late.
No worries, James.
Yeah, I have the same question. It's busy. It's been a busy day. Yeah, so I have the same question as Jacques. So I would like to private chat with you.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
And Jacques, nice to meet you. Nice to see you.
Likewise.
Yeah, I would like to learn more about your business and see what do you do.
Yeah, sure. I can always I can channel my details through Brendan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Happy.
Yeah. Then I will link up with you.
Happy to connect you guys.
Thanks.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks, BB. Same time, same place tomorrow.
Same time, same place tomorrow.
Cool. Have a good day. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.